Welcome. In this video, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping to clean things up. Because when we start looking at our node view and we're starting to get a lot of spaghetti going on here with all of our cable connections, as our rig grows, that's going to get really unwieldy. So there's some things we can do to make our life a little bit easier. So the first thing I want to do is I realize I left it last time where we have a keyframe for moving the OGL controller. So one of the things to know is when we are working on positioning things, we can turn off animate. And when I do that, what's going to happen is now if I go and select this keyframe here, say bye-bye keyframes, and it puts our OGL controller up in the corner. Notice when we select things, they turn red instead of yellow when animate is off, so it matches the colors of those icons. But with animate off, we can move things around without creating keyframes, which is what I want. So now if I go to my OGL controller, and if setup mode is not enabled, but because I was verifying why I had that keyframe, I enabled it. With setup mode enabled here, now I can go, I don't want to grab the whole leg. Let's zoom in so I can go grab my controller, and I can now position this where I want it to be. And then turn off setup mode. So it's been positioned. No new keyframe has appeared. We have a keyframe, of course, for the drawing where we scaled and repositioned it, but nothing else is there. Turn back on animate. We now have the running man. It's in yellow. If I click things, they turn yellow instead of red. And our OGL controller has been moved. So that's step one for improving what we're working on. Step two is we're going to create a few templates. These templates allow us to have some reusable components to work with. So when we look at it, we can see where we have whole collections of overlay, line art, auto patch, color art, underlay. So when I have all of those items, what's nice to do with that is, one, I can make a group with these that I can then drop in as a template. So the way that we can work with creating templates here is we go into our library, and let's just move our window down here, and I need to add a new library here so I can work with it and store things where I will keep these templates. So to do that, we choose Open Library, which really just means we're opening a folder. We're not actually opening a library. So I'm going to go click there and choose what I want, and I want to put it into my rigging folder. So I'll hit open. Now that's open. Now if we look close, we'll see that there's a little lock icon on this, meaning I can't add anything to it. These two folders up here don't have lock icons. These are tied specifically to this project file. So if I add anything to those folders, they will be part of this project, but they won't be accessible to other projects. If I want to make them accessible to other projects, that's where I add them to my own folders. So the first step is I go to the folder and I right click on it and choose Write to Modify. That removes the lock so I can add things to it. Every time you open up a new project in Harmony, all of your locked folders will be relocked. So if I unlock it here, when I open up a different file, the rigging folder will be locked once more. To create our first template, I'm going to put a copy of my art layers in. So I'm just going to highlight one group of art layers here. So overlay, line art, auto patch, color art, underlay. And with those highlighted, I can copy it. So I can use my keyboard shortcut, go under my edit pull down menu, but it's just on a Mac, Command C, Windows Control C. And now I can go up into my library window up here, and I can paste it or right click and choose paste, and it puts it in. And now I'm going to name this Art Layers. So I have that set up. So the way that this works is if I want to add a new copy of Art Layers to my project, I can just grab this, drag it out, and we'll see how it added that grouping there. So I don't have to go and find them every time inside my library of nodes, adding them in. So that's the first thing. the next thing that we want to do is we want to create some of these joint cross-patching things that we have set up. So like here I have a 2-part joint. I'm using it on the boot. And with this 2-part joint, we can store this information inside a group here so that we're able to, which I see we probably need one more comp on there, much like what I have over here. Or I can group these with a comp and then I'll have to redo some of my cabling as I work with it. The same way we're going to create a 3-part joint. So we have the foot, the upper leg or lower leg, and the upper leg, so we can create a multi-part joint with that. But when we do these cross patches where it's standard, where we have line art, auto patch, color art, that we can group and arrange the whole thing, and then we just drag it out, and then I just drag my art to it, drag it to a comp, and we are up and running. Now this boot one is a little bit different because has an extra cutter for cutting out on the sides of the boot, so we won't be grabbing that cutter as part of it. So we can see each part comes out with a comp. So if I highlight these pieces right here, my art layers, cutters, and the comps for each one, I can highlight that. And if I right click, I can go to group. We're not going to add a composite to it, we'll just group it so it's set up. And now when we do it, we don't see any change on our artwork, and now this is a little bit cleaner. What I'm going to do is go into this group, and we'll just call this a, let's see, 2-part joint, and then we'll have a 3-part joint. Close that. Let's go in and clean this up a little bit as we're going to work with it. One of the things I'll notice is it sometimes will flip-flop things around a little bit when you create that group. So I just have to uncross those lines there so we know I can drag the upper one down, it goes to here, lower one, it's there. And I'm just looking at the organization, and it did flip-flop those. If I keeping my, let's see, lower on the left, oh no, that's right, upper is on the right. Okay, we're there. So let's go in and take a look at what's happening here. And I'm going to drag in a copy of my art layers because I want to make a template for this 2-part joint so I can just reuse it all the time. So I need 2 overlay and 2 underlay, so copy and paste those. We don't need these additional layers there. And now if I have my overlay there, my underlay here, let's just move those over. And then overlay over here, underlay over here. And now I can just drag that over there, So we just connect everything. And then we connect everything out. So even if we're not using our overlay and underlays, we can have this kind of pre-primed into our project. And of course, we can see we get the cross with the cutters happening. That's our cross cutting that is occurring. I'll just move this over here, this over here, just trying to make it look a little bit better. When we look at what is happening here, we have the 2 in, 2 out, cross cutting going on. You can close out of here, 2-part joint, select that, copy it, go up into my library and paste. I'll paste in as a 2-part joint. So we're good to go there. Now, when I go into my 3-part joint, it's going to get a little bit different because we have a few extra things going on. We got the knee happening where the knee is going in, so we're going to have to be able to bring the knee into the joint that we eventually make with it. So we can bring it in, but for now I am going to take it out so it's no longer connected, and I am going to remove where we are connecting with the stripe on the boot. So now we have the foot, the lower leg, upper leg, our artwork, but what we care about is these art layers, where I might as well, since I have all five layers going on here, I'll just drag them down ahead of time. Actually, we can drag it down and then we'll deselect the ones we don't need as part of it. So all of our art layers have a cable coming out of them. They're all connected, so we just can simply highlight those nodes. We have the different comps. We've got our double cross cutting going on here, and I can right click and choose group. It didn't reorder anything, but you can see if we zoom out how much cleaner our node view is getting. And with these art layers, having them all spread out within our character rig, it's going to get really, really complex if every drawing layer has all of these spread out while we're working with it. So it's going to be making everything just so much easier to follow our kind of node spaghetti where we have all these cables going on. So here, let's rename this, and we will call this a 3-part joint. And let's see what it looks like in here. So we can see that we have our 3-part joint happening with it. So I think everything is looking pretty good there. So we can kick out of it, close, kick out, select our 3-part joint, copy that, go up here, paste, 3-part joint, good. So now every time I need a 2-part joint or a 3-part joint, I can just drag it out, connect the art layers to it, connect the art layers then to the comp that they need to go to, and we are up and running. So it greatly simplifies. So I'm going to now give myself just a little bit more screen to work with here. And the only thing we really need to see is what's happening with that boot, because we can see, and also we have to bring the knee back into the mix here because now our knee crease is not showing with it. So bringing our knee crease in, what we can do is I can now drop this into my artwork here. So we want to bring this in. We can see that it's replacing that port. So we can't add a new port to this by dragging to it. So we have to create the port from within inside the group. So the hack that I've found for doing this is I just need a element layer like this overlay. So I'll just drag this over. And now it gave me, if I look here, I'll see, hey, look, there's a new input port. That's perfect. So now I can just drag my knee crease to that input port because we don't have to have the same number for ins and outs happening. Like a comp doesn't always have the same number of ins. It's got a bunch of ins and it always has just one out. So with this group, I now just added that new input. So I can now just delete that extra piece. So I have the knee crease artwork going in here. And if I remember what I did before, my knee crease artwork sat between, as we can see it's not there if I look over in my camera view, and now it just reappeared here when I connected it, and it's between my overlay and my line art layers is where it appears. So that now gives me that option. So that allows me to reconnect the knee crease in there. Now what we don't have, if we move over here, we'll see the boot is no longer cutting, so we need to do our cut. And before, in our original artwork, we just grabbed out of the comp where we combined our two auto patches but that's not the auto patches that we want. We want this auto patch here so we want the lower leg auto patch to come through. So we're going to go grab the lower leg auto patch. I can just stick it on here. It creates a port out, and we can see where it says it's AP2, and we can see there it's AP2. So if you name your nodes, when we hover over a node on our port view, it tells you the name of what that is. So if I go here and hover over this node, it tells me that that's AP2. So we know that's the one we're working with, and I can drag boink into the cutter. Boom. So we have now created a much easier configuration where we don't have such a cluster of crap going on. So I can even now this is the stripe on the boot here, which I might even want to make another backdrop just for the stripe, but we'll just leave it. And because it's below kind of the boot, I'm just pulling in my hierarchy. Now I can pull my foot over here. And if I want, I can arrange things where I leave my art layers here. Whoop, don't want that. And it kind of will help snap them together. So what I want to do is make this just a little bit more compact, because by making it a little bit more compact, it's going to mean when we have our entire rig set up, it's going to be a whole lot less crazy. Oh, the OGL controller can go below. I'll put the knee crease. So here we have all of the art layers. Now these are the original pegs. Now I don't have deformations on these. The moment I put on deformations, they will be, we might as well put it the same height as the stripe, or I'll just put it a little bit higher so we can see. So there's something about having just nice kind of straight lines occurring with it. And because these two pegs share the same pivot point, we want those to be in alignment. These two pegs share the same pivot point, so we want those in a vertical alignment. That allows us, when we quickly scan our nodes, to understand the hierarchies and relationships. So now I can just put this right there. I can line this up, and it always just kind of snaps it with, but we can certainly compact that in a little bit more. There's no reason to leave it hanging out to dry. Put this over here. Our OG controller. We're probably just going to have all of our OG controllers go to a single comp, and I'll give that a backdrop later. We'll bury it somewhere down here. There's hips we haven't made yet. We'll need to be connecting those, but now we can see how much cleaner and easier it is to see what is happening. And I realize I can even make it a little bit tighter here and pull this up. So we've now cleaned up our node view considerably. What I will want to do is add in the deformations next for my different art layers here, and we will save that for the next video. Good luck and happy rigging.